Right, let's take a look at this lap then. Set my camera up quickly, as usual. Okay, so the hairpin is, well, we'll talk about the hairpin at the end of the lap. In qualifying, probably a good idea to go all the way out to the wall at the back, and then cut back in, probably getting you a 10th by the time you get to turn 1. Okay, so I don't know if this is considered turn 1 or just the straight, but hug the wall on the inside here. You're gonna want to use the minimum amount of steering possible just to maintain speed. Obviously in the race, if Nissans are coming by, leave them at least a car's width and a half out here, you know. Don't run out all the way to the wall. And then the braking point for turn 1 is, for me, is this start of this white line here. And there is a slowdown if you go too far over the blue line. I think it's like half a car, so if you get the centre line onto the blue line, that's a slowdown, so just bear that in mind. Heavy braking in a straight line, and then obviously trailing off as usual when we get to the corner, down to the normal sort of 15%, 20%, even less. In my testing, you can take the apex curb. It unsettles the car a little bit and sort of slows you down getting back onto the throttle. It's not too critical because it's only a short run down to the next turn, so whichever is more comfortable for you. If you find you're getting too close to the outside wall, missing the apex, then take the apex. You'll probably be slightly faster through this corner and then lose it here, so it's really it really doesn't matter too much, whichever is easier for you to be consistent with. So then pushing quite hard on this lap. So just took a little bit of the apex there, and then we're gonna need to get very familiar with some walls on this lap. So this was a clean lap, but that looks like I was about as close as you can get. So let's call that one turn 1. So turn 1, between turn 1 and 2, I'm leaving it in second gear, and then back down to first gear for the roundabout thing. So obviously again, get very friendly with this wall, and then aim the car sort of straight for the motul, or the Tamiya, whichever one's easier to see. And then when you get to the curbing, you just want to ride up on the inside a little bit, which actually kind of helps kick the back of the car around. And then as soon as you can see the gap between this wall, your sort of exit gap, you're just back on the throttle. So that's probably easier to see what I'm doing from the onboard. But basically, as soon as you see that end of that wall, you gun it. And then get the car back over to the left. Nice early braking for this corner. It's deceptive. It looks like a sort of tight corner, but it's actually quite quick. So nice early braking, roll off the brake, take a bit of, again, similar thing with turn 1. You can take a bit of this apex, but it hops the car, which you may find puts you into the outside wall. So in that case, try to avoid the curb, which would just be a little later on the brakes and then turn in a little harder, but pick the throttle up sooner. So you're carrying less corner speed, but getting back on the throttle earlier. So I'm both times on this lap I've gone for the smoother option, which is not to hop the car. You will notice you have to be quite progressive with the throttle inputs here. Usually with the Audi you can just jam the throttle down and everything's fine, but it's quite easy to lose the rear. So just bear that in mind. Then again, we're going to get right out to the wall here. This corner is kind of the opposite. So this one looks more open, but it's a sort of slower entry. So not really got a good reference for where I'm braking. Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm getting on the brakes, but there's no real reference for it. And then you'll notice with a lot of the apexes here, it's the inside curving that's the actual off-track kind of, that's the actual apex. These curbs in front of that, you can just ignore them. So hop over that curb, back on the throttle, you're going to get close to that wall again, and the rear wants to go here and the next turn. So get nice and close to the outside wall, braking on the 200, or is it the 300? 300. Stay nice and close, and then this corner you want to sort of over slow the car slightly, and get the car straight for the exit because it will slide here. There's a few bumps and there's a crest up here, so if you're still sort of turning too much to get back to the left, you'll lose the rear there as well. So you don't really want to track all the way out because you've got to get the car back to the left. So that's why we're over slowing slightly, just to get into the apex and then get back to the left, because the track kind of goes left as well, which doesn't help. I'm modulating the throttle there, as you can see. You can't quite get to full throttle straight away. And then back to the left, braking at just after the 300, or on it actually. Close to the wall again. And then ignore these curves, it's the wall that's the inside. A little bit of a breather. Then we're braking at the 500. I've seen people try and sort of get the car over to the left to make use of this bit of space. The Nissans will probably be doing that because they've got the grip to do it, but I wouldn't bother. You see me sort of squeeze up to the wall just on the bit here that sticks out, and then I'm sort of getting as far left as I can, but without actually sort of intentionally moving left. Down to second gear, and then there is a slowdown here. So I think if you cut this apex but quite late in the corner, it's okay. This was, like I said, this was a clean lap, so no off track. But there is a slowdown there. Maybe you just need to be like way more over this side. And then, so again, not really like tracking out properly. We just don't have the grip to get the car back to this side for the next turn, so it's better just to use half the track here and get back to the right. And then again with these curves, it's this inside curve that we're sort of using as a reference, and then cutting the end of it. There's a slowdown there as well if you cut too much. And then this, the hairpin, you want to be as far left as you can get and sort of overshoot it a little bit, and then use the brake to almost sort of stop. It's hard to explain, but you need to be using the brake right up to the apex to keep the rotation. If you've sort of finished your braking and you're just turning, you'll really struggle to make it round quickly. So you see I'm sort of going into the corner with quite a bit of speed still, and using more brake on turning than I normally would. sort of intentionally trying to lose the rear a little bit, and then obviously get as close to the curb as you can, and then pick the throttle up in the hope that the rear will again lose a little bit of grip and just help you around the corner. If you're using my setup, I've moved the torque split forward to help with the sliding at the other turn, so that makes this even more difficult. But you just see the car there, it sort of helps me out. It helps there's quite a lot of steering input, to be honest. So as you're accelerating, and it's got, I think it's a 64% split to the rear, so there's quite a bit of power going to the front. It just drags the front of the car around a bit like a front-wheel drive car. And that's a lap. Obviously, it's a 60-minute race this week, so we'll have a quick look at the pit-in. Wherever it is, there it is. If no one's behind you, then obviously stay left and then sort of cut in and try and straight line it as much as you can. The cones are actually up here, so you can go into actually get off the track quite fast and then use the little stretch inside to slow the car down. If there's a GTP behind you or another Audi, I would say try and leave them the outside. Ideally, tell them you're pitting. If you don't have time to do that because you'll be coming through those double lefts and everything, you won't have a lot of time to be pressing buttons on your wheel. But leave them a lane on the outside, and then basically you want to avoid someone trying to pass you on the inside as you're going into pit lane. Yeah, so hopefully there'll be some chat about that in the Discord or through the week at some point, just so everyone's clear. And there's no accidents on the way into pits. Alright, I think that's kind of everything, so hopefully the guides are still helpful to you guys. And I'll catch you next week.